each other.
How was the competition at today's race? Tough?
Plenty tough. It's really a hard race. I didn't block off the radiator properly, and the heat got back in the cockpit, and so I was getting very tired. It's a lucky thing all the competition retired.
What about the course? Is it? It's a little rough, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very rough. I'm hoping Portland will see their way clear to improve it over the next few years. It could be a very nice course. There's some parts of it, the back section over here, and what they call the circus is very nice, and the rest of it is just old crummy road.
Doing any bottoming out?
Plenty of it. I think it ripped up my my rubber universals on the transmission, and just about didn't finish, actually.
Do you think with the new course they draw more competition to the Rose Cup?
Yes, I think they could, although I think more money would draw more competition better than a better course. Actually, you know, it'd be nice to have both.
How many years have you been competing at Rose Cup?
This is the first year I've ever driven here. It's the first time I've ever driven on the track, actually. And it's not a very interesting track, except for the back side and what they call the circus. The front straight, it starts out as a beautiful drag strip, and it's very smooth and everything, and then it dumps into this cobbled up country road that is just terrible. I'd call it a butcher shop. It tear up cars.
What about the competition you've seen here? There are a lot of new Formula Fords out. Do you think that's the coming thing for a lot of drivers?
I think it's definitely the way that guys who want to go fast on a medium budget will move to in the future, yes. I think you'll find that it'll be a much larger class than Formula V. The cars are easy to maintain. The engines, while they're stock and have dry sump oil systems, are very reliable, and they don't need any maintenance between races hardly. And the parts are cheap, so I think you'll see they go very fast, actually. I think you'll see a lot of them in the future.
Peter, why is this such an important race for you?
Well, it's the final point race, national-wise, for the West Coast, and we hope to do good enough to make the national runoffs in Atlanta this year.
You went out at Delta Park at the Rose City Cup races. How do you like the track?
Very nice. The track is greatly improved over last year, and it's just really an all-around nice track.
How are you going to run the race tomorrow?
The finish, just no real strategy, just go out, try to stay in the front group, and go.
Will you try to take the lead right off, or?
There's some awful fast cars out here. I think we're just going to try to keep running.
Can you explain your car to us?
Well, the car is a 1968 model Chevron. It's straight over from England. We've run it, this is the 4th year for it out here. Oh, 3rd year. It's getting kind of along in the life of a race car. Had a little trouble last week at Salt Lake. We lost our rear brakes, but that we hope we've corrected, and we're just trying to make it last the rest of the year.
Some good race car drivers out here. Who are you going to have to look for tomorrow?
Well, quite a few of them. Mike Hansen in a new Bratham, Bud Roode in a Bratham, Middleton in a brand new Lolo, and they're all quite fast drivers. Dewey Harless from Portland here is out. I think anybody that's in B class can win the class.
I'll be driving the Group 44 TR6, Triumph TR6, and hopefully we're looking for good weather and a wonderful race.
How much experience have you had in this car?
I drove it originally in 1969. Bob Tullius had a race in the Grand American Series in NASCAR and asked me to fill in the seat at Wichita, Kansas, which is just 50 miles from my home. And then this year, Bob being injured, as you know, in Thailand, he needed somebody to drive the car until he got well, and I've now had the car 2 races.
How have you done?
Well, we had the pole both races and won the first one at St. Louis. So the second race we had mechanical problems and had to drop out after 7 laps. We'll have the GT6 Plus, which is the little coupe, and it's driven by Brian Firstenow. The MGB is driven by Bob Welch in Class E, and the Spitfire by John Kelly is in F production. So we'll have 4 cars in the production categories.
Where does the group go from here? You have to tow those cars around all over the countryside. You must have a pretty carefully planned circuit to follow.
Yes, it is well planned. We run about 13 races a year. Our next race will be next weekend in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. So we go all over the United States with our Quaker State van with the 4 cars in it.
Well, Formula V is restricted very much to using the suspension components, wheels, and tires, not the tires, but the wheels, and all the suspension, everything off of a Volkswagen. The Super V is, the engine is a Volkswagen, but it's modified quite a bit, and the chassis is open. You can make a complete race car out of it. In other words, there are several different brands, about 21 manufacturers making this kind of a car, and they all make their own type. There are restrictions to the length and the width and the weight, but it's pretty well open as a race car. It's a full-bred race car.
Competitive with Ford, C's, B's, A's, what?
It's a little faster than when it's right. It's a little faster than a Ford, and it's not quite as fast as an average B car. Somebody like Alan Lader, it's not as fast at all, but we can run with some of the B cars out here.
Where's the big competition coming from in the Rose Cup this year?
It'll be from Virginia with Group 44, Brian Firstenow, on a nationally prepared car, national champion in D production in past years.
Will they be bringing that whole group of cars here?
They'll be bringing 4 cars, 1 car to run against me, and then 3 others in 3 other different classes.
Have you met them before?
Yes, I raced against them last year. I finished 3rd against Brian last year, and we hope to do a little better this year.
What is ET Racing?
It's a place where, out here at the races, where you can bring out any type of car and run in a bracket situation against your own times. Volkswagens run against Corvettes. There's different brackets, A through G, set up so a Volkswagen would be in a G bracket, and an A bracket would be like a new Corvette or something similar to that. Through horsepower doesn't make the difference. It's consistency is the whole counter of the thing.
How would one get to compete out here? They just come on out and bring the car? Whatever?
Just come out and bring the car. All you need is a safety belt and a fairly safe car that has good tires and the like that. Elapsed time, that is the amount of time it takes to run the quarter of a mile.
Stand back. That are trying to sit down, please stay back. This is for your own safety.
Cars are divided by class, so there is somewhat equal racing in each event. The open wheel cars, of course, on Gary's shelf there. It's a beautiful car, capable of very high speed.
how you punch the hole in the center.
It's a machine. It's a hard head with a tool. Punches it from the inside.
You just ran.
I'm quite impressed that the car didn't slow down very much, just about 1.5 miles per hour. As a matter of fact, the last run we just made was still better than the world's record with the mufflers.
Would you be willing to run with mufflers?
Certainly would. Have no objection whatsoever.
Are the drivers willing to use mufflers? Are they willing to tone their engines down?
I think in the long run they will be. They're not anxious to stop a perfectly tuned car and start backing up and trying to find out how to make it run again, but they're obviously going to want to do it to race and to stay in the business.
Level of 86. 86.
Tower 10-4.
This is pure professional. These drivers get paid for what they're doing, and the prize money that they accumulate over the years usually is shared with their sponsors and their car owners. So it's a completely different thing than we've had in the past, and you know, we're putting it on together with a full amateur program, so we're really going to give them a heck of a show.
At this stage, is there any way of telling just who of the top name drivers will be here?
Not really yet. We're very early in our planning stages. As a matter of fact, we're going to have somebody calling all the drivers in the next week. But so far, there are 75 top caliber drivers signed up for their numbers with the Sports Car Club of America, so we know we're going to have a 50-car field. And we'll undoubtedly have last year's winner, Peter Gregg, with a factory-sponsored Porsche. He'll be here to defend his title.
Just how good is the racing on the Trans Am level?
Well, this year, of course, it's a little different rule-wise than last year, and they've taken this step to equalize the cars. So in terms of the competitiveness, it ought to be better than ever. The cars should be very, very equal.
until you stop crashing. Then it gets fun.
You ever had a bad accident?
I had one my very first race.
Pulled my ligaments on my left leg, but
Broke my bike up. Next race I won, so
I enjoy my racing.
Pinned up in an office all day long, and I got to get out and do something to make life a little more exciting.
that one that's running starts out at 5. About tire pressure.
Big fans. That's
You're not Huffaker engineer. What make? Thank God this always fell off.
Good, quickly. Rolling. Here we go. Bob, you have something new called a Trans Am. Explain to us what this means and what it means to everyone in the Portland area.
Well, let me tell you what's different this year, Frank.
said it was.
How do you keep it going straight?
Right, they call here.
Those guys are hired drivers. I mean, that's what they are. They drive their car. They do nothing other than drive their car. They've got a great ability. They do an excellent job at what they do. But that's all they do. They do their press stuff. They come in early, have their press conferences. Then they party all week, race the race, and then they're the big winners. And you don't really get a lot of information. I mean, everybody knows that they've got their crews and their mechanics and everybody that work on the cars, but that's the background. Well, that's actually the heart. Without the car running the way it runs, the guy could never win the race, usually. So drag racers, most of them do their own. I tune the car, I drive the car, and we work on the car together. So it's more of a, I don't know, a team deal. I think a drag racer's got to be much more diversified. You got to do a lot of other things. I tow my car down the highway. I drive as many hours as the guys that work for me do, where I'm sure you don't see Richard Petty going down the road in his truck, driving from one race to another.
When that amber light blinks on, the quickest guy who leaves the starting line, if you leave on the other car, say 1 car length on the starting line, it gives you 1/10 of a second at the other end of the track. So you can run a 650 to where you can have another car run a 640, and you can still beat him by that starting line advantage. The quicker you are thinking to leave the starting line, the better off you are at the other end of the track.
I think we get the short stick, but what's hard is SCCA has sort of a stigma on the word amateur. It's like the Amateur Olympics or something, you know. Nobody really gets enthusiastic about it. There are no personalities. It's hard to develop a personality, say like myself, to the fans, because It's the fans are in different areas. I race out of San Francisco. I'm up here in Oregon. Our sport's been going a long time, but it's finally in the 70s, it's starting to hit its stride that sports car racing is something more finesse, might take a little more challenge to the drivers, and the spectators get a lot more action.